Okay, so good evening, everybody. We'll now move to speak in English. Welcome, everybody. We have quite a few people here on the line. As I said, we will, first of all, we would like to welcome James, who gave us, again, some of his time precious time to sit with us, explain a little bit about this, what's coming on the 20th of September. And the zero draft, which now became also the final text of what's called the silence procedure. James, I would like to start maybe for those of the people that are new here into all of this issue, to maybe give a little rundown of what is the UN actually, because we are now talking about the UN. We're not talking about the WHO. We're talking about the General Assembly that will take place at the UN on the 20th of September. And from there, of course, there is the WHO that will take will take their role as it is. So go ahead, James. You're in mute.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully you can hear and see me fine.
Yes. Yes.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'll try to be as brief as I can because questions coming from everyone here is better than me droning on about all the details. I did just put a link in the chat and people have commented, and so it's disappearing up there, but there's an article that I have written that I hope to publish today called The People's Declaration. And so the idea is, well, the United Nations is about to make a political declaration, but they haven't asked any of the people what we think. And so to answer your question a little bit, the United Nations, there's 193 member nations. The WHO is an affiliate organization under the umbrella of the United Nations. A lot of the various agencies in the United Nations donate money to the WHO. And so that's a strange sort of something, but that's how it works. Many of the United Nations organizations, the divisions, donate money to the WHO, I guess, to keep them going. And so the WHO in many ways is beholden to those organizations because those donations come with strings attached, and that money goes in the direction that they want it to go, and it doesn't necessarily go towards the things that would really make people in the world healthier. So this political declaration, I'm just going to be honest and blunt, and people can certainly have their own opinions. They scheduled the meeting on September 20th in about 2 or 3 weeks, back on September 2nd of last year. So this is not a surprise. This has been at least a year in the making. And they do that on a regular basis. Oh, we've agreed to have a meeting a year from now, and we're going to talk about this a year from now. And if you read the last couple of paragraphs in this document that we're talking about, the final draft that they're likely to adopt, they talk about having meetings in 2026. So they take the long-term view. Not that a year is a long time, but I don't know anybody who has a meeting with a group of people set up 2 years from now. And they say, okay, we're going to meet on this date, and between now and then, we're going to work on whatever it is. So the weakness that we have is we respond to what they are doing after they've spent a year doing it or more. Be that as it may, the vast majority of people in the media are not talking about this. They're probably unaware of it, or if they're unaware of it, it doesn't fit with their way of dealing with the world. The media is generally, and so are most people, reactionary. Somebody did something, and then we react to it. I've been trying to raise the alarm about this for, certainly a month in a loud way. And so we still have a couple of weeks. And so because people tend to react to secrecy and deadlines, we have a 2-week or so period. I believe it's going to happen on a Wednesday. The 20th is a Wednesday, so a little bit more than 2 weeks, to use this event to raise people's awareness and expand the people who are like-minded and would want to join forces with everybody here. And so hopefully I've answered enough of your request to talk about the United Nations.
Yes.
They have 193 member nations. The WHO has 194 member nations. And it's confusing because 192 are in both. There's one nation, and I can never remember them. My apologies, I've got it written down somewhere, but I couldn't find it. There's one nation, I think it's an island nation, that is in the United Nations, but is not in the WHO. And there are 2 nations that are in the WHO that are not in the UN. But for all intents and purposes, 192 nations are in both. And that's most of the world. There are exceptions, but for the most part, that's the vast majority of humanity. And so this particular document, the Political Declaration on Pandemic Prevention, Preparedness, and Response, they are masterful at writing words that put you to sleep, make you think that they're trying to do something good for humanity. But if you put yourself in their position and say, how could I interpret what these words might mean if you choose to interpret them in a certain way? My interpretation is they're asking for $30 billion a year to finance the aspects of the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex that they used to harm people and scare people over the last 3 to 4 years. They're not talking about examining the mistakes that were made. They use the phrase lessons learned. And the lessons that I think they've learned, they believe that the recommendations that they made were good. And the problem was not everybody in the world obeyed them blindly. They believe that jabs are safe and effective, whatever those words might mean. And they feel that they've succeeded to a degree, but also failed because, and I think this is in their document, they got 75% of people in developed countries to accept the jab, but only about 27% in relatively impoverished nations. And they feel that they've succeeded on one side and failed on the other. They're working to get more jabs into more people in the nations who resisted that the first go around. And so the lessons that they learned is, they believe that everything they did was right and proper and good and effective and beneficial, and they just need more money to do it all over again. And that isn't the lessons that I learned from the past couple of years, but that's how they are proceeding. And so what we need to do, I feel, is spend these next 2 weeks, because I don't believe we're going to stop them from adopting this. That would be a prayer come true. It would be astonishing. We should all pray for that. But on another level, you can go up to any of them, do you know that this is, they want $30 billion, and part of it is going to essentially go to making more jabs. you may very well talk to people who think that's a great idea. Go talk to somebody else. Share that information with the next person, and build your group of like-minded people. Use this to find more allies. And you've got a wonderful group. You've got 177 people here. Whatever the maximum is for your Zoom meeting, I don't know if you have one.
Yes, we're up to 500, yeah.
Seek to exceed that. Set a goal that, by September 21st, you have another Zoom and you have over 500 people show up, because you've used this to, spread the word and raise awareness and bring more people in to, know about what's going on, because there are many, many more things coming. Now, this is just a political declaration. It's a bunch of grandstanding. It's a bunch of talk. It's not necessarily legally binding. It's just showing their intent. And some of their intent is in support of what the WHO is doing with the negotiations for amendments and so forth. But I think what if in 2 weeks you went from, there's 178, let's say it's 200 people, might come in and out of this meeting today. What if you doubled that in the next 2 weeks? Everybody here goes out and finds one person, right? I'll make it a little harder. Everybody gets 2 people. If there's 170 people on this call and everybody finds 2 new people and invites them to a Zoom on September 21st, you'll have over 500 people. And then you do it again. So it's one thing to talk about all of this sort of stuff. I could certainly get into the details. I put the link in the very top of the chat. I'll put it in again, because if anybody came in after I put the link in, they won't be able to see it.
Yes.
It's the People's Declaration.com. And so that's an unpublished article. You're getting a little bit of advance notice. I hope to publish it later today. You can see all of the details of the document. This is in some ways an opportunity to find people who you can add to the group of people that you've got. You guys have a wonderful group here. Let's just use this to make it bigger.
Yes, thank you so much, James. Yes, and basically, so you're saying basically that this document is not legally binding. What we have seen, and maybe this is also an opportunity to talk a little bit on the basics of this document, right? I know that we've started reading through it, and as you said, it was a very sleepy text, but what we did notice was that, everything was actually phrased in double and triple language. And that is the trick about all of this, because while they're talking about lessons learned, these are lessons learned which have not really been learned. It's like they're saying, for example, one of the things that we noticed that they were saying was, okay, let's talk about the topic that really, really bothers us, and this is the human rights, right? Mm-hmm. We have seen in the WHO, in the proposed changes, we have seen that they were saying, first of all, non-binding. They crossed that off, and then they're talking, and then they're moving to talk about equity instead of equality, and they removed or suggest to remove the text with regards to human rights, with respect to human rights and fundamental rights. In this document, we see already in the very first few lines that they were talking again. They were mixing the terms equity and equality, mm-hmm. and human, and they say something about with regard, or wherever human rights are good to go, then we will probably refer to them. But they are putting on the front and on the first priority the equity. And equity basically means that we become dependent on each other, when it comes to our health and to everything else in life, we bear responsibilities for our neighbors, community, and if we choose, for example, not to take a medical intervention, then we are going to be labeled as responsible for the outcome. I think so.
Well, if I may expand on that,
please.
You said something about, I think you said triple language. I think is what you said.
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
As with everything in life, okay, you can look at anything and you can say, well, if I take this idea and my intent is true and honest and righteous, and I'm doing everything in my heart to make this be better for everyone involved, that's beautiful. That's what all of us would tend to naturally do. So they've learned how to write language that good people read, and they go, wow, this is wonderful. If you read the Sustainable Development Goals, I've read them, I've highlighted them. When I read them, about a quarter to a third of them have a certain appeal, and they sound good. Until you look at it and you go, if I was evil and I wanted to use this to control people, does the language, could it be interpreted in a way that's totally different than my first interpretation? Okay. And so I've become pretty good at looking at their words and language and seeing how it is able to be manipulated that way. And so one of the first things that jumped out at me was this is the first time in one of their official documents, they said, well, we need $30 billion. Well, they said that 2 years ago when the independent panel put forth their proposal back in May of 2021. They said, oh, we need $31 billion. Okay, $30 billion. Can I see a list of how you're going to spend it and who's going to receive it? Oh, no, those details are not being made public. They're going to, in the WHO CA Plus, they would set up a conference of the parties where unelected, unknown, bureaucrats would be making the decisions on how to disperse those $30 billion. Well, that's not acceptable. So sometimes it's what's not being said. The other thing that they're promoting through the WHO CA Plus, and this is what is primarily, I hope everyone will watch the video and listen to the audio in the People's Declaration.com. My concern and Meryl's concern and Del Bigtree and others is that what they're really spending this money on is biological warfare. They're not making sure that people are healthier. They're collecting pathogens. They're spending billions of dollars to find pathogens that they can monetize, and they want to share the benefits. Now, if people could be made to understand that that's what these documents are really all about, they've figured out that they can conduct biological warfare in the form of injections under the guise of improving health. It's kind of like giving someone a hand grenade for their health. Here, play with this long enough. Right? And you are asking us to accept that what they did over the last 3 to 4 years was good, made people healthier, and we need to do it more by an order of magnitude. And it's insanity, but they want to search the world for pathogens, share those pathogens with the WHO and everybody else so that everybody can get more injected mRNA vaccines, because they somehow think that we still believe that that is a good idea to improve or know the truth, that we share. And we need to help raise their awareness.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. And I see we have Retzef Levy here. So first of all, James, I would like to address a question that came here on the chat about the concerns about One Health. One of the things that we have seen in the document really talks about One Health, which is a beautiful, yet another beautiful term, but in practice puts everyone, human, animals, environment, and how do you say this? And plants all at one level. So basically, it means that we are all the same. And I think it will mean as well that if humans supposedly cause damage to the environment or to nature, then they would be blamed. So this is as well something that I would like to, or someone has been asking here that we address. They are putting this in the document. We've seen this in one of the last last chapters of or sections of the document, at least of the what we call the PP sections. We will get to that further. But do you have some insights on this as well?
In my own small way. Okay. I
Yes.
have a tiny little yard. I think it's maybe 400 to 500 square feet, relatively tiny. I live in the Los Angeles area. I have a little bit of a food forest. I have 15 fruit trees in my yard. I have a compost pile. I have earthworms who are eating all my leaves and, regenerative agriculture and organic, food growing and so forth and so on. Of course, and I feed many birds and many squirrels who, pick the fruit that they can gain access to. I try to live, with nature as much as possible. Of course, the health of animals, the health of insects and bees and plants and the environment is all very important. The question is, when you recognize that, but then you say, so this group of people gets to tell that group of people how to live their life because they're in charge of the world. That's where the problem is. Of course, the concepts are good, but then they jump from the concepts of we want people to be healthy, we want plants and animals and all that, everything to be healthy, but then they want to be in control of your life without your input into how we would actually make the world a better place, respecting animals and plants and all that sort of stuff. And so anytime you hear One Health, they're not concerned about one's health. It really should be changed into control of everyone's health. When I hear the word or phrase One Health, I hear, oh, they want to be in control of everyone's health. And so this is all just geared to trick good people into hearing in the words things that sound good, but their interpretation of it is they get to be in control of the rules and the money that goes into essentially more drugs and more jabs the One Health manifests itself in, well, they want to be constantly checking your sewer or your chicken coop, the bedding, or your pets, bed where they sleep, or if they go to the veterinarian, test your animals. Oh, what if someone else's animal tested positive for something, whether that's a thing or not, and you happened to go to that veterinarian office in some span of time, then you're now subject to some sort of restrictions. Okay. They haven't learned that the solution to health is to naturally improve people's well-being. They just want drugs and jabs. And they will do everything they can to get more poisonous drugs and injections into people because the business model that they operate under isn't rewarded for making you healthy. It's actually, rewarded for forcing you to do things that are actually bad for you.
Yes, I completely agree on that. And I would like to give the opportunity now to Retzef Levy to join us and speak a little bit. And yeah, Retzef, please take it away. Hi. Good to have you here with us.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to share a few thoughts. I think there are a few things that were just said that I fully agree with. I think it's very tempting to super analyze every word that is appearing in the document. But I'm not sure it is as productive as one would hope, because for two reasons. One, I think these documents are written purposefully to make them vague. And the second thing is that if we want to be able to explain this to others that are not in the details, we cannot expect them to dive into this level of nuances. And I think it's almost like a lost battle to convince people through the nuances of the language. I think that the major the several major issues that I think we need to emphasize is what is this organization about? What is its track record? And especially over the last 3 years, what kind of policies this organization promoted, and emphasize those. And again, I think that the point that was made here, that the sentiment that comes from these documents, James kind of pointed out, that they basically want the same, just with more centralized control and with more authority. I think that should be the main message, and all the rest is maybe important nuances for us to analyze, but I don't think it should be part of how we explain this to others, because it's just like, I don't think that people can fully understand this, and also the language is just not clear. Now, the other thing I think is very important here, and is that they continue to view health as something that is focused on emergencies. I think that that's a very crucial point, that their sentiment is the focus of public health should be about pandemic preparedness. And that is something that I think is just, there are a lot of facts that can reject this sentiment and basically show that that's not the right focus for public health. If you actually look on what is causing deaths in the world, pandemics is not a very strong reason for death. Definitely not in developing countries. And I think that there is a set of arguments to make that to reject this sentiment, that the focus should not be on pandemic preparedness. And moreover, if you invest $30 billion to prepare for pandemics, there are going to be pandemics, because that's the nature of investments of this magnitude. Like you don't invest $30 billion and then say, hey, when nothing happened, we just invested it for 30, for the last 10 years, we invested it and we didn't use it, right? Like, so if they invest $30 billion on preparedness for pandemics, be assured they're going to be pandemics, made up pandemics, or like whatever the definition is, or other emergencies. I think in Israel there is another element that the World Health Organization and the United Nations are hostile to Israel. I think that's when you talk to Israelis, that should be a point that we should emphasize, because that's something that people can resonate with. I do want, however, to say one thing. I think we need to be careful not to go against practices that really do have merit in them. So, for example, I don't view personally sequencing of existing viruses as doing warfare or something that is evil. This is something as opposed to developing new viruses, right? Like I put a very big distinction between the two, right? I think that sequencing existing viruses is something that does contribute to understanding how viruses evolve and can help potentially, developing ways to deal with them, or understand how they may impact. I I don't think that we need to, again, and I think that this is, regardless if this is true or not, or what their intentions are, I think that this is not going to fly very well as you explain this to others. Like that will immediately shut people off in my experience. I do think though that one conjecture that I have is that their focus now on Africa and developing countries is based on the premise that they understand that they're going to be very hard and challenging to sell a lot of vaccines to the West and developed countries, because there is a growing level of skepticism. Enough people. So I think that they view, oh, let's just sell this to the people in Africa, right? And like helping them, right? And I think they need some of the $30 billion that they need is to actually be able to recirculate this money back to their own hands. I think that they have a lot of, I've seen that pattern, that they kind of raise donation and make donations, and then these donations end up in companies that they invest in. So they basically launder the money in one way or another, because they're going to donate money to fund vaccines in Africa that the companies that they invest in will sell through the United Nations or the WHO, and these donations will be used to pay back to these companies. They do that with polio. They do that with other. I've seen that pattern. So I think that that's another thing to maybe try to explain, that it sounds very generous that they want to raise money both from countries and private money, but we need to ask very pointed questions: where this money is going to go, and who is going to decide how to spend it. And so that's another point that I think that James also made that I would like to echo. Anyhow, the only thing that I would like to, again, to summarize, that I think we need to, as much as it's tempting, to stay away from trying to analyze every single word there, because they are vague, and I'm not sure it's going to give us a productive line of explaining what's going on here. I think we need to focus on what this organization is about, what positions it had and actions it had in the past, and the fact that it's essentially is trying to convince us that we need to do more of the same, just stronger and more centralized and under more control. And this is a clear message that I think people can resonate with. And it doesn't need to, you don't need to bog down in all the, in this word and that word.
I think
because the immediate reaction would be, hey, nobody cares about these documents at the end of the day. They don't matter as much as the actions on the ground. So anyhow.
Yes. So, Retzef, I would like to just address your point, and I certainly agree with you that, going into the per word interpretation indeed is not effective. However, I think we need to cater here for many, many different kinds of people. Some of them are more aware than others. So I think some people would definitely ask to see what there is in the in those documents that we are signing for. Or signing up for, or that our government is going to commit on our behalf without even asking us, or without even bringing this up to the public debate. And here in Israel, certainly absolutely nothing. There's a complete silence.
So this is another point that you're bringing up, but I think that
yes.
The general point is not this word and that word, but the general argument here is that there is no transparent discussion or debate or a process to make a decision as a country that should go through the parliament, through transparent discussions, transparent to the public. I would emphasize and stay at the point that is a high level point. If we want to sign something like this, we need to have the right process, and doing it behind closed doors in a completely non-transparent way is certainly not an acceptable way to do that.
I could certainly agree with you on that. And James, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something about it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the vast majority of what you said. And Retzef, invite you. My contact information is there. By all means, reach out to me. You most likely have not had a chance to look at the information on the People's Declaration. The idea is the United Nations, without talking to the people, is making a declaration. If you present the People's Declaration to regular people, and ask them if they can comprehend that and if they agree to that. The countervailing approach is the UN is going to do what the UN is going to do. They're going to adopt this amendment. You know, it's like a freight train. It's rolling down the tracks on September 20th. They're going to adopt it. Well, we, the people, need to come together and be just as clear with what we want and what we declare. And so that is an attempt that I put forth to dip into this enormous pool of language and extract a couple of things from the political declaration from the UN, from the amendments to the regulations, and from the proposed framework convention that everybody inaccurately calls a treaty, and do a quick summary, put it all together. And if you feel that there's something in there that could be better, you know, by all means, please do. But the idea is they are all very good at hiding their true intent behind a lot of flowery words. And I agree with you that most people are not going to dig down. They're going to get stuck and they're going to get all, you know, it's frustrating. But if we collectively can look at this language and say, well, that's really important, and that's really important, and that's really important. Let's take those things and present that to people to raise their awareness. The vast majority of people have no idea. And it's my job, it's our job, whoever wants to take on the task, to try to raise people's awareness of this secrecy, that, you know, decisions are being made that are going to affect your life. Yes, we can't expect everybody to dig into this and make sense of it. We have to help. And I'd love to get your feedback. You know, by all means, please send me an email or, you know, write or whatever. We can make it better. Not one effort is going to work for everybody, but I think this is good enough that people will. I don't think people want more of what we've been getting. It's the lessons that they claim to have learned are not the lessons that I learned over the last 4 years. So, but you know.
By the way, I say what I said just when I spent like a good 10 hours reading the last document. In fact, I think I looked at an earlier version of it several months ago. I guess that I'm not sure we're saying something different, but I think that you cannot understand fully what they say there without understanding the context of what this organization is about and what they have done over the last 3-4 years. Because let's say that you have no context, you can look on many of the things that are written there as, well, that's reasonable. You want to put, you know, you want to strengthen health systems, you want to take care of healthcare workers, you know, right? Like it all sounds, it also could be presented in a positive spin. I think that to me, the context is, this is what they've done in the last 3 years. What they proposed here, that we're going to continue to focus on pandemic preparedness and all the other things that are important to healthcare. And we're going to continue the practices just with more control and with more enforcement, with giving more power to an organization that failed already and is corrupt, fundamentally corrupt, and is motivated or driven by self-interest, including commercial self-interest factors. And I think that's something that people can resonate with. And then after that, if we want to create another layer of details and another layer of details for those that want to know more, that's fine. I just think that we need to be very careful not to complicate the message.
All right, fair enough. All right, thank you very much for this discussion. Yeah, James, is there anything else I think that you would want to add, or?
Oh, there's an infinite amount. There's an infinite amount of information. I welcome the opportunity for everybody to review the peoplesdeclaration.com, watch the video, listen to the audio. It's an attempt to summarize one facet of what they're doing in a way that, you know, hopefully people will resonate with. And I'm open to suggestions.
All right. One thing here that I would like to see, there's one person here or a few that I hear have something to say. Dr. Daniel Sofer, would you come up and speak, or would you want to ask your questions on the chat? Okay. All right. Okay. He does not want to do that. All right. Who is behind the forum Cafe Shapira?
hi.
תציגי את עצמך בבקשה.
Hello, this is Gali Bat-Chorin.
Okay, hi Gali. Yes.
Hi. I've got two questions because I want to tackle this thing. And two things I need to know is, first of all, what is the premise? What's good is coming out of it? I'm not speaking about they're going to do. To take care of the health of the people, but anything specific that they promise, even as a lie. And the second question is, what would be the highest price for Israel and for us if we bail out?
Wait, you're on mute.
I'm not sure what bail out means, and
yeah.
You mean exit the United Nations or exit the WHO or
WHO?
Yeah. Would you be kind enough to repeat your first question? I want to make sure I answer it.
Right. It's not that I believe that there's something good in this thing. I think it's horrible, but I'd like to know what's the good things that are promising, and I'm not talking about just empty words. It will bring health to the world and something effective. Are we getting a more medicine if we want to by this, or if we're not in it, we won't get the medicine we need? And the other question is what is the highest price we might pay if we decide to go out of this treaty and not sign it?
Okay, there's many things going on here. So first and foremost, the thing that we're talking about right now in terms of the political declaration that they plan on adopting September 20th, it's going to happen. Okay, and so if you're talking about the proposed WHO CA+ framework convention, opting out of that means that the industries that are being set up to receive these many billions of dollars, okay, it's a fear of missing out thing. If nations agree to, they do so partly because it's probably going to come from developed nations, Israel being at the top tier. It's more of an income transfer from Israel to other nations. You know, they would be asking Israel to donate money to build infrastructure, laboratories, and manufacturing plants in impoverished nations. The United States, the European Union, the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and all of the foundations would be donating money to build out the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex in developing nations. If you read the language in the documents, there is a differentiated but common responsibilities. And this is an agreement where not every nation is treated equally. It's baked into the language, and I'll just use common language, that wealthy nations are going to have to build infrastructure for poor nations so that poor nations can manufacture their own poisonous injections to murder their own people. Now, that's maybe an overstatement, but that's the gist of it. What do you gain by participating in that, in my view, is, shame. What do you gain by rejecting it, you call it for the scam that it is. This isn't about health. This is a business venture. This is a venture capital prospectus. If you participate, you get to participate in the conference of the parties that would set up a bureaucracy that would meet on a yearly basis to decide how all of this money is going to be distributed. So you either agree to play that evil game or you don't agree to participate. Now, I don't know if I answered your question in the way that you thought I might. The dangers of going against the powers that be is everything. The IMF, doesn't loan you money. All kinds of financial, restraints, and the downside could be the most imaginable horrible treatment that you could receive as a nation. And this is the problem. They sound nice, but they play dirty. And so the downside is, existence, life. And so the benefits that they purport are not things that are based on making people healthy. They have assumed that the way to prevent pandemics is to be looking everywhere for pathogens, share that information, make a jab, and force it into people's arms. That's what they think is the upside.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Retzef, please.
So I think that one of the things that this money that we will have to donate will be used is to build an infrastructure that will allow them to respond. Like, for example, they talk about an international distributed teams that will be able to deploy itself every time you find a new variant that they decided that is dangerous. So this is what I said, that I think if we go in that direction, we almost guarantee that we're going to have repeated emergencies all the time. And by the way, this is even absent any malicious intention. Why is that? Because when you build an infrastructure that you invest 30 billion in, this infrastructure will have to justify itself, right? Like even if this is the most innocent people, this is even the most benign, good intended effort. I think we need, not that I think that they have good intentions, and I think that many of them are psychopaths, even if they're the psychopaths that don't understand what human health is about. But I think that even if you don't need to assume ill intentions to understand that if you go in that direction, you're going to have repeated health emergencies again and again and again all the time, because you're going to build this gigantic infrastructure of these special teams of development of vaccines, and these systems will want to demonstrate that they are effective. The other thing I think that is important, that if you join as a country to this, you essentially give your politicians the excuse to basically impose very stringent and undemocratic policies like what we've seen in the last 3 years, under the excuse, what is the most common excuse that you hear when you talk with people about what happened in the last 3 years? Oh, it happened everywhere, right? Like, what do you want? Like, it's not unique to us. So I think that by committing to this, even if it doesn't have the formal binding directive authority that we are afraid of, even if it's just like at the statement level, you're basically giving your politicians, our politicians, the excuse and the framework to come back whenever the next emergency situation will emerge, or whatever you call it, the so-called emergency, and they would say, oh, everybody behaves like that. We just follow what the World Health Organization is recommending. What do you want? And that's going to be a very powerful mechanism, as we could see, to convince people that that's necessary. So I think, to me, the big fight here is a fight on narrative. What we see in the last 3 years is what we want to see going forward, or we want to really change course. That's to me the essence of this fight. Then there are many details to it, but the essence of this fight is whether we think about the narrative of the last 3 years as a success story or as one of the most horrendous showing of misuse and misinterpretation of human health and human rights that really caused disastrous outcomes across the world. To me, that's kind of the fight. The fight is on the narrative. Like, how are we coming out of the last 3 years? Do we come with the sentiment that, oh, it was all good or almost all good, we just need to do it more and more centralized? Or, oh my God, this was something so horrendous that we need to make sure it never repeats again, right? And I think, we need to build a camp that says the latter. And that's the fight that we are fighting here, in my opinion.
Yes, and I agree. And yeah, James, do you want to maybe respond to that quickly, or?
I completely agree. Agree.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Dave, please. And it would be nice if you just give a brief introduction on yourself, because I don't think I've seen you before on our Zooms.
Hello. Yes, this is true. My first time here.
Welcome,
everyone. First, I would like to say thank you for both of the guys that speak before me. I don't know them, but sounds like they are
you will get to know them very soon.
Yeah. Sounds like they're really interested in the greater good. But I'm not here to ask a question. I'm basically a little bit different than what I hear here. In my opinion, ideas, you cannot make them go away, yeah? But the people that support the ideas, with them you can handle, yeah? I think this talk should be a bit different than what we are doing now. We know who are the people here in Israel that cooperate with these Nazis, yeah? We know them. We know their names. We know who they are. We know what they do. And in the last 3 years, they were proud showing their face, yeah? I think what we need to understand is that we don't have time for papers and pens, yeah? I urge everyone.
Dave, I would please appreciate, look, this is the first time that you're here. And I would please wish to avoid messages that are very negative to take any action of violence, okay?
Oh, no. I did not say any word about it.
I know, but I'm feeling as if you're steering towards that. So just to give you that little suggestion, okay?
So let me ask you the next question. If it's really important for you to not use violence and not go in a violent way or direction as a group, which I agree with, what other options do we have really on the table to actually do anything to prevent, or at least to show that we are not going along, right?
Yes.
This is really my question. I don't believe a paper and a pen will help in this situation, especially not after everything that happened. And this conversation should be really focused on what can we do on the ground. Okay. Letting different people, Israeli society here, walk around talking in the microphones, in the demonstrations, and presenting themselves as part of something that we are not even a part of. This is something we should definitely not support. And more than this, I mean, you're talking, it makes me feel like it was supposed to be this talk 15 years ago. We are in a really advanced stage in this situation. I mean, the next crisis, whichever it may be, we will not be able to, organize during it, yeah? So it's important to know what we do beforehand. And I actually do believe that everybody here in this conversation feel inside how close we are to not even be able to react. So signing petitions, making nice conversations, explaining about what the Nazis are doing, it's excellent, but that's not really what will give us any kind of tools as a group to feel that we are a group even, yeah? This conversation will end and everybody will go in their lives and we will continue to be in this same routine.
Okay. So
Something
Dave,
needs
let
to
me
be done.
yeah. So I would suggest that first of all that let James respond to this.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you very much for your question.
I think that was Dr. Dave, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dave, my phone number is in the chat many times. It's on everything that I do. You can reach me through all of the apps and stuff. Would welcome the opportunity to carry on this conversation further. Please reach out to me. Every time somebody gives me a phone call, my first question is one that I seek to learn. Okay. And so as an overview and an answer to your statement or response to your statement is the action that is right for you to pursue and the action that's right for me and everyone else here is going to all be a little bit different. And so I would love to hear more about what you have to say. Give me a call when you can. Love to talk to you.
All right. Thank you very much, James. All right. אני רוצה, okay, Estia.
Good evening. I would like to refer to the question, what will happen in case that we'll request to leave WHO? So it depends on the timing, because if we will leave WHO prior to the 20th of November, then there will be no sanction, which I believe that was the question that actually been asked. But if we will try to leave later on when they will become our legislator, then we most probably will have a sanction, and we don't know how deeply they will try to stop us, because the eyes of the world will actually look at us. And if we will succeed, then the whole package is going to fall down. So yes, we can leave if the work that we're doing, and that's also answering Dr. Dave, if the work that we're doing with the rejection letters to the people in the WHO desk in Israel and to the parliament, if it will work, it will do the work that we are looking for, then we might be successfully believing WHO, mainly because of the decisions that they had concerning Judah and Shomron and the old city included, that was alike decisions that made Israel to leave NATO. So if we will be able to force this attitude towards the parliament, most likely we will be able to leave WHO if, and this is a large if Netanyahu will not leave the government and will look for new elections, because in that case the parliament, the Knesset, will not be able to start new things, and we will not be able to leave WHO, and then it will be very hard to leave them afterwards. But this is life or death. We haven't got any other chance, and I wish everybody worldwide would understand that no matter what their parliaments or the European parliaments speak of, we must leave WHO. Everyone must leave WHO, and I think, James, that you will agree with me, don't you?
Yes, the short answer is yes.
James?
The short answer is yes. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
When you find yourself in an abusive relationship, negotiating for better terms with someone who ultimately is, not listening to you and not paying attention to your needs and desires, you have every right in the world to leave that relationship. Now, every decision comes with consequences. So you could look at it this way. What are the consequences of staying? And, as with any informed consent, with any health procedure, it's not safe and effective. That's a lie. There is no such thing as safe and effective when it comes to this. it's relative risk and relative benefit. Everything has a certain amount of risk, everything has a certain amount of benefit. If you look at the risk and the benefit of staying in the WHO, and you compare that to the risk and the benefit of leaving, right? If we just keep letting them do what they've been doing, we're going to get more of what they've done to us over the last 4 years. That's what they're clearly stating. I don't see any benefit to that. I see only harm. So I very much agree with you. It's just, don't look at it from this or this, you know, good or bad. This is how they've tricked everybody in who, you know, to doing things in the medical world. It's never, nothing is 100% safe. Nothing is ever 100% beneficial or effective. It's a risk-benefit analysis that only you and your specific situation decide. If the vast number of people in Israel decide that the risk of staying is different than the risk of leaving or whatever, so be it. But look at the question properly. It's not safe or not safe or good or not good. Each individual person for their health makes an analysis that's unique to them. And the thinking that someone could just say, this is good, or this is bad, or this is safe, or this is effective, that's flawed logic. That's not how it's supposed to operate. The idea of informed consent is you get all the information and you weigh it and you make a decision that's appropriate for you.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much as well. I received a message from Dr. Mina Keleni. Mina, would you like to come up and speak? Because you had some questions or some comments on the chat. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Hagar, for having me. It's a real honor to join you for the second time. And thank you, James, for this continuous, wonderful effort to make us aware of these new updates. However, when I've just checked your new website, the People Declaration, I found you have an argument about promoting the fair, equitable, and timely sharing of benefits arising from the use of pathogens, sequences, or any other materials. However, you forget to add what is next to this phrase, taking into account relevant national and international laws, regulation, obligations, and the frameworks. I wish to say that gain-of-function research, when regulated with very solid regulations, is very, very beneficial. This is frank to say it. I would like to say it frankly, as a physician, as a scientist. I'm considered one of the top 2% most citable scientists according to Stanford University. So I'm also a human rights activist who opposed the mRNA compulsory vaccination since day zero. And Hagar knows this very well. And I've also published about this. But however, whenever I'm opposing mRNA compulsory vaccination and the idea of these mRNA vaccines, which produces glycoproteins that has been proved very toxic, and no one sane can argue this now. Many, many new articles are proving what I've said since August 2020, that it is toxic and harmful, and the idea is false. No matter they say, no matter how they say they are safe, they are effective, everything is changeable, and one day the truth will be evident to all of us. However, again, it is very aggressive, James, to ask Israel or to ask Egypt, where I belong, or any other country to leave the WHO. We can agree that we will have benefits from the WHO, and we will prevent whatever they can force us against our free will. For instance, you have previously shared that some countries have, or at least one country, have rejected censoring of information. You know, and one of these This from your website, according to the amendments that the WHO regulation were proposed. One of them was the WHO wanted to censor some information at times of pandemics. This was truly insane. What they did when they censored this, the real information about the effectiveness of mRNA vaccination has made the US people being convinced, falsely convinced that they were effective. And later on, when they were forced to release the real documents, everybody knew the truth. So one country argued and asked not to censor the information, and this is the right thing that we should defend. However, when you say that it is to promote the fair, equitable, and timely sharing of benefits about the research or gain of function research, this gain of function research will never stop, and we need it. However, the regulation should be updated and should be very solid to prevent another horrible mistake. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We can agree to disagree. I feel that doing experiments to make pathogenic substances more deadly is not something that we should allow. It should have...
Thank you, but this is not what I'm saying. You know, gain of function research is different from bioterrorism. What you are saying right now is bioterrorism. And sure, it is not what I know about gain of function research. Gain of function research...
You may have a different definition.
Yes.
And I can accept that.
Thank you.
I mean, I can, on an intellectual basis. How would you define gain of function research? Because maybe you have a different definition in your mind.
According to my interpretation, according to my own anticipated future research, it is to study the virulent viruses and to change them in order to save lives. This is definitely gain of function research because I'm dealing with deadly viruses. I'm doing some research to try to know what are the, we call it virulence factors. What are the factors or what are the genes that make these viruses highly virulent and fatal to human beings? And I'm trying, and we are trying to...
If I may, if you're involved in virulence reduction research, that would be wonderful. But I wouldn't call that gain of function. Okay, if what you're studying is how to protect people from existing pathogens and potentially reduce their transmissibility, I would not call that gain of function. I would call that reduced virulence research, reduced transmission research. Words matter. So if gain of function is changing viruses to make them more deadly, that should not be allowed. If you're working to make them less deadly, less transmissible, or to find out how to protect people from them, that's not gain of function, in my definition. So I think we can agree to agree.
Well, according to your definition, it might not be, but according to mine, it is. So we can agree about what is good and what is bad. So we must differentiate what I mean about good gain of function research from bioterrorism.
Guys, I think this is not a...
No, actually, this is very important because if people, and thank you so much, I didn't catch your name and now it's gone.
Yeah, it's Mina Keleni, Dr. Mina Keleni.
Mina, yeah. You know, again, by all means, call me. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the videos that are there, and you know, your attention to detail is wonderful. These are the discussions that need to be had because the language that is in these political documents is so vague. It could be interpreted one way when someone like you or I are interpreting it in a very different way. This is exactly the point. Good people trying to do good things see goodness in this language, but bad people who are intent on doing bad things and making a lot of money off of it can interpret it a different way. And if we don't have a seat at the table, it's going to be interpreted in ways that we cannot control. This is exactly the point. Thank you for bringing up the issue. This is fantastic because this is exactly the problem. They put words on paper. One person reads it one way, another person reads it another way. I trust we're both good people trying to do good things, but there's miscommunication, and it's built into the language of these documents.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
No,
much,
thank you
folks.
very much. Thank you.
Yes, and indeed, we brought this point as from the very beginning about it, and we had some opinions also that varied about the need to go into the depth of the detail per word. But I think eventually this is a decision for all of us to take how far we would want to read this and interpret. All right, I would like to ask Yaniv. Would you like to just ask a quick question?
Yeah, I would like to reference the thing that people raised about maybe acting violently. From my experience during in participation in several demonstrations, from my understanding is that if we act violently, then we lose, because first of all, they're just anticipating that and they're waiting for that. And they have the military and the police ready to act violently. So that will not give us any
room for, they would not give us any room for anything basically once this is done. That is true.
They will suppress us very quickly.
That is correct.
And we have to be smart. We have to understand the cards, and especially if we are acting in small groups. If we act violently, we lose. And from what we saw, the best solution was to don't comply, and that was the most powerful thing that people did. And
yes, that is correct. That is correct, and this is indeed one of the solutions that I think we have. I would like also to give the microphone now to Jonathan because he also has an idea about what we can do. Jonathan, please speak up.
Hey, good evening. Thank you. I want to share something very important. I try to do it focused. Sorry about my English. I think the most important thing is the solution. Now, everybody know we're dealing about with bullies because they're doing something that not acceptable. They're trying to tell us who we are. They try to tell us what we should be. And it's not I think it's not matter if they are telling it in a question with question mark, with mysterious way, or we understand their attention, and it's something much more bigger than corona, or more bigger than if there is virus or not virus or all kind of treatment. It's dealing with bullies like we deal with bullies in school. It's the same way, just we're doing it as a grown-up. And I think what we need to do is to take responsibility, because this is what exactly bullies want. They want to scare us. They want us to be unaware what is going to be. They want us to tell them, listen, let's do that more 1 year, 2 years. No, we understand already their attention. We learn from 2020 to 22 what they can do. We understand their attention about changing the government. We understand this already. So if we understand already what the attention of the bully, we must to take responsibility. And the most responsible way to take responsibility is to understand what we can do to face them. And there is all kind of way, because this is what grown-up people that care doing. Grown-up people that care are finding solutions. So I don't want to tell exactly what is the solution. There's a few options, I think. But I think the most important things to do is exactly what James said, is to understand how we are getting together in a way that can we understand each other, and the way we can find the most operative solution. Because we have just until the 20th of September We don't have after the 20th of September. We have until the 20th of September. It's a really, really good time for us to understand what we can do, because life as our life is there are when we are making plans, and we can talk about if it's there virus or not virus. But right now we must to act, and to act is to understand first what there are weakening points, and there are a few weakening points. And the most bigger weakening point, it's not the WHO because they are bully. It's not the UN because they are bully as well. Our strong point is us. It's not them. It's us. And I think the focus is in us, not just in our government or our countries or our personal law, if it's in Egypt or in the United States or in Finland, or I see all kind of friends from all kind of our friends from the international community. It's understand that we are more important for them, and understand how we make a better connection between us to face them. So the first way I think it's about the law. How we can use the best law? How we can use the law against them? There's all kind of a show we can use the law. This is the first thing. The second thing, I think, it's if they have a declaration on us, why we cannot have same declaration on them? This is our responsibility. If they have declaration, this is what bully do. You have declarations. So what if we have a smart and very intelligent and wise declaration? Because this declaration can help a lot of people understand what's happening. And this declaration can have help the other people to understand there's responsible people that see what happened, and they connect for them truth and for their wise place and do something responsible. So I think it's a very good option if until in the close week we find a way to publish for all our friends, because we all connected to hundreds of people, and can get to thousands and 10,000s and 100,000 and millions of people if we have a good declaration. This is one of my ideas. There is more. I sure James have more, and we have more people there have more. So I think we don't have privilege right now to ask what we can do. Right now, it's a good time to ask what we can do in this precious time before this declaration, because there's our life right now is before this declaration, after this declaration. So I think we have a good chance to do something very significant for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. I really appreciate this. And I think I would certainly tend to agree with you, and I would definitely prefer this than anything else that bears violence. And we can do this. We can do this with the help of all of you. Dave, please, last comment, and then we will close this part of the meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was really fun listening to all of this. It was really nice. Thank you, everyone. I also had an idea. Why don't we, in the time, sign the declaration from ourselves, and also
we could do that.
Do the democratic action of protest against the actual people here in Israel that are related to these organizations and are invited there. So it means we go troll them. We just go there with the drums and everything. We do the democratic duty of protesting the actual people here in Israel that we know that are taking part in these meetings and so on. We know who they are.
Yes,
I mean, we have 200 people here. It's enough that half of us come. One evening here, one evening there, one evening anywhere, you know, hit the drums, you know, use our presence. And maybe, you know, before you were talking about the actual game here is the interpretation of the words, right? So violence, yeah, it's a relative thing as well, because you could easily send messages through continents with non-violent actions. It depends who you want to impress. So, like, if we want to agitate in a way or two their cabinets or their sit-downs somewhere in Davos, yeah, we can here go to the people that was visiting there, you know. They will talk about it. yeah, we have in Israel these people, they go to this and this and that and that, you know, all their little minions. Yeah, we will not hurt them. We will not do anything. We will not do anything bad. We will just face them, because if we only have 2 weeks, we might as well just do it. You know, let's make up a list, go to their houses,
we could do
protest,
that.
tell them the truth in the face, and you know.
Thank you very much, Dave. I really appreciate this. And we could probably think about very creative ways. I know that in some places I've seen that when people want to raise some awareness, they've just stood in front of, in certain locations, also with pots and pans, and made a lot of noise. So this could be maybe another idea, which is not violent, but will definitely make
the point is not to miss the point, which is to agitate the people that
exactly
our local people are managing. So if they, like over there in Switzerland, sitting and thinking, what's with the operation, then we are a nuisance for their people here. They go out from the house, they go there, they go here, they go, we are there with the pens. We know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah. All right. James, please go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Dave, you said something that I just want to repeat. You said the point is not to miss the point. Okay, I think I heard you correctly if you said that, you know.
He did indeed.
In my view, the point is this. What percentage of people in Israel do you think are aware of this upcoming political declaration? Pick whatever number you want to pick out. Look at the percentage of people who are
May I answer?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm guessing everyone, but they don't know it because it's being put through the tunnel of the local. Like, for example, here in Israel, we have this thing about the the protest because of the government is changing, because it has this or that, whatever. So in the subtext, everybody is dealing with it, you know. So when it will change,
if I may, we've got 168 people here right now. Okay, raise your hand if you have read the 13-page document in its entirety. Okay, that's about what I thought we were going to get. 1 hand, 2 hands, 3 hands, maybe 4. Okay. The percentage of people in this group who are only tangentially aware of the facts of what the UN is telling the world that they are planning to do under their silence procedure. This is the point, and I'm quoting you. Thank everybody for raising your hand. The point is the way they operate. They publish something quietly on their website. They believe that that is adequate notice, that they have an intention to make these declarations. Okay. The percentage of people on Earth who are aware of this is infinitesimally small. That is the point. Each one of us can reach out to as many people as you possibly can. You can print out a 13-page document and you can hand it to somebody or show it to them or email it to them or whatever and say, the United Nations is doing this. I trust that you're not aware. Okay, why would you be? They may not care. They may choose then to ignore it, to be ignorant of it, because they have other things to pay attention to. The point is the level of secrecy wrapped into what they call the silence procedure. If we do not object, that is as good as giving our tacit consent. So we have a personal obligation to ourselves to speak out against anything that they're trying to slip through under a silence procedure. So all I'm asking people to do is share this information with as many people as you possibly can, set up another meeting, maybe on the 21st or maybe on the 19th, or whenever you want to set it up, and see if you can't take this 165 people who are currently here and turn that into 500. If each one of you tell 2 people and bring them to the next Zoom meeting, you will have tripled the number of people who are here. That's all I'm saying. Secrecy leads to horrible things. Shining light on what they're doing is step number 1. That's it.
Yes, and I agree with you on that. More people really need to know about this. All right, I think we have covered most of the questions from people, and yeah, please, I would appreciate if we just move on with the rest of the meeting. And if you guys have questions in the chat, we have some groups and some other ways that we can communicate and can answer your questions. I would like just to say as well to all our listeners that together with Zemer, we recorded a podcast with some, let's say, guided reading of the first part of the document. We are intending to do this as well for the second part. So please take the time to also listen to this. It might resolve some questions for you and some thoughts. And so thank you very much for everybody, especially to our distinguished international friends here that joined us today. Going forward, we will continue. We will stop the recording, and we will continue with the Hebrew part of the meeting and some updates. So thanks so much again, James. Always good to see you here. And Mina, bye-bye.
Yeah, no, thank you so very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and everyone is, welcome to reach out to me. I'd love to continue the conversation if anybody's interested.
Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mina. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you very much. I've sent you an email, by the way.
All right. Bye-bye. And Mina, thank you also from the bottom of my heart. And you're a friend, so thank you so much for all your support and joining here.
It's an honor. An honor.
And
Thank you very much.
we will make sure that you become part of our international group as well. But we'll talk about this separately offline. So have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. הדר, את יכולה לעצור את ההקלטה?